Hello, welcome to the Inside the Birds Fantasy Football Show with Andrew DiCecco. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds, and of course, I'm joined, as I am every week, by InsideTheBirds.com's Andrew DiCecco, also our resident fantasy football expert. I got a lot of things I want to talk to you about, Andrew, and hearing some, as we get deeper into the season, we're going to now all these waiver claims and stardom sit-em becomes really, really important. But obviously the big news in the NFL is the status and the fate of Odell Beckham Jr. As we record this, he has still not signed a contract with anyone. He is a free agent. He passed through waivers. Let me first get your opinion on Odell Beckham Jr. and who he is anymore. I know that certain players go to certain teams and can either improve or regress depending on the scheme, but do you see Odell Beckham Jr. at any point still being wide receiver one for a fantasy football team?
Not wide receiver one, Jeff, but a wide receiver two in the right offense. I think he's playable, and I would grab him off the waiver wire. I know a lot of leagues that I've been in, he's obviously not on anyone's roster. He hasn't been very productive. But if he goes to a team like the Packers or the Seahawks or something like that, you have to grab him and plug him in because he will contribute with a high-end quarterback. Is he going to be the game breaker of old, the old Odell Beckham? No, I don't think he's at that stage of his career right now where he's going to still have that game-breaking ability, but he's someone that you could still grab as a wide receiver 4, and you can play him, based on matchups, you can play him.
So if he goes to kind of the teams that he's been reportedly linked to, we talk about the Packers, talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, he's still the third option, right? If it's the Packers, there's Devontae Adams, there's Aaron Jones, and then I would imagine there would be Odell Beckham. Same thing with the Chiefs, where you've got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So what kind of realistic numbers as a third option, even in a high-octane offense, are we looking at on a weekly basis?
I think he may only get 3 or 4 catches in those type of offenses because, like you said, he's going to be a secondary option and take a back seat to a lot of those other guys. So, like I said, if you need depth, grab him if he's on some of those, high octane offenses, obviously, but he's not someone you're going to put in as your wide receiver 2 and count on high end production.
All right. So not a fantasy football savior by any means, but perhaps a nice complimentary player who could have a good week any given week.
I do have some saviors for you, though.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. All right, let's talk about it. Let's get right into it.
All right. Well, the first savior, we're talking about a wide receiver. You mentioned him. I have him. If he's still out there, grab Rashard Bateman from the Baltimore Ravens. In his 3 games since coming back from that groin injury, he's averaging just under 7 targets a game. He has a very favorable schedule coming up, including Minnesota and Miami on the slate. So grab him, and I think you can safely plug him in as your flex, maybe even as your wide receiver 2 as these bye weeks approach. If you're in need of a quarterback, Jeff, look at PJ Walker as a flyer who's replacing Sam Darnold this week, the former Temple quarterback, dual threat guy. I like his big play upside, and they're going to be chasing points in that game. So if you need a late, a dart throw, get PJ Walker. Jordan Howard obviously is another one, 17 carries, 71 yards. The Eagles just brought him up to their 53-man roster, so he's going to be there to stay. Obviously, Miles Sanders, his return is on the horizon, but he's going to have a role. And Dearness Johnson. The last time I recommended Dearness Johnson, he had 146 yards and a touchdown. Well, Nick Chubb, COVID list, and Felton, the other running back, is on the COVID list as well. While they still may be in play for Sunday, it doesn't seem likely. Dearness Johnson should get the lion's share of the carries. So, against the New England Patriots, I like that matchup. And Devontae Freeman to turn back the hands of time here. He's in a timeshare with the Ravens, but his snap share is going up, and he's had a touchdown in each of the last 3 weeks. Obviously, that's a run-centric offense there in Baltimore. So you could do a lot worse than him, especially if you're suffering running back injuries like I am with Chase Edmonds.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've got him in one of my leagues, and I was obviously disappointed to see him go down with an injury last week. Let me ask you, while we're on the subject of running backs, how patient, because I know that Javonte Williams owners are frustrated by Melvin Gordon pilfering, carries and touchdowns, but Melvin Gordon in his own right is having a good year. But how patient should fantasy football owners be with Javonte Williams, and would he seem like a good matchup this week against the Eagles?
I like Javonte Williams a lot this weekend against the Eagles, Jeff. And I think they're going to start to trend in his direction. He's going to be their piece of the future, their bell cow running back. But like you said, both running backs are playable right now. But I like the youth, the upside, and the big playability and the burst and acceleration that Javonte Williams gets. You're going to get more of a home run threat from him. And going against that Eagles, that soft Eagles front, I mean, that's going to be a great play. I mean, you could do a lot worse as a flex or an RB2 option.
Excellent. All right. So some good waiver claims there from Andrew DiCecco. Andrew, why don't you tell us who you're definitely starting this week and why?
Talking about turning back the hands of time. If you have James Conner, play him. 21 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns last week. Chase Evans is out, and they're facing the Panthers. That's right. And they were Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both had good weeks, so I would play him. I've also been a big advocate of Hunter Renfrow, who had 17 targets over the past 2 weeks, 14 catches.
Yeah.
And he has a touchdown. Never had more than 77 yards this season, but he's going to be a target monster, continue to be. So get him into your lineups there. And Jerry Jeudy against the Eagles. Obviously, we know Teddy Bridgewater is not someone to push the ball down the field, but Jerry Jeudy is not that type of receiver. He's someone that's going to separate in the short to intermediate levels of the field, and you're going to see him really work those seams down there. And I think that he's going to rack up a lot of catches, may even score a touchdown this week.
Yeah, probably a lot of yards after catch too against that, as you mentioned, that Eagles defense that doesn't always tackle very well across the middle, especially a guy like that.
Yeah.
Let's go with some guys that you're going to avoid this weekend.
I'm done with Antonio Gibson. I mean, and this week he's going against a tough Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. He was out touched by J.D. McKissick. He was out carried by Jared Patterson, which is very interesting. He's also dealing with that shin injury. So I would roster Jarrett Patterson if you can, because I'm not sure how much longer the Washington football team's going to be willing to hang in there and before having maybe to put him on the IR.
You know what, Andrew? Antonio Gibson is going to be a guy that I try to jump on next year, because I think he came into the year with an injury, with the turf toe he was dealing with. Obviously, has been dealing with the shin injury. Obviously, the quarterback situation. I just think that their entire offense has been dysfunctional. He hasn't helped it, but I still think the guy's got boundless potential, and he's going to be the guy that I keep in the back of my mind, because he's going to fall next year in the draft. Because
he will. And I'm a big Antonio Gibson fan. I took him in the first round in a couple leagues this year. Also, Elijah Moore, the wide receiver, who we all saw break out in Thursday Night Football with 2 touchdowns, 84 yards, going against a very tough Buffalo Bills defense. You don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I don't think Lightning's going to strike twice. I don't think he's going to have an explosive game this week. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, obviously a lot of people are quick to plug him into their lineups. A good waiver wire flyer. He's actually having a better pro career than college career, which is oddly enough, but I mean, the volume's not going to be there. I don't like the game script, and I think he's going against a tougher defense this week in the New England Patriots secondary. He did have 86 yards and a touchdown last week, but I wouldn't feel comfortable putting him in this week. So those are some of my sits.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, and I guess if you're sitting Elijah Moore, you're probably not going to start Mike White at quarterback either, thinking you're in for a surprise big game like it was a couple of weeks ago. All right, those are your stardoms, your situms, your waiver claims from Andrew DiCecco. Great stuff, Andrew. We'll do it again next week. Thanks for watching Inside the Birds Fantasy Football Show with Andrew DiCecco.